please welcome our second panel. That's a lot of panelists. I feel totally outnumbered here. Let's start off with you, Dr. Karoff. We hear that students today are facing challenges that make it more difficult to succeed, but many in our audience likely faced similar hardships when they were in school. Are students today really that different? Yes.
Yeah, thank you for this opportunity. I think actually the simple answer is yes. Our students really are that different, and you saw the video, you heard some of your opening remarks too. I think we are. Our students do come in with some very different backgrounds and experiences than maybe was true for many in the room. Doesn't mean those of you in the room did not also face all sorts of challenges, financial and otherwise. But given the fact that our students tend to be more part-time, tend to be first generation or the first in their families to go to college, they tend to be working a lot more, they transfer a lot more. There's a word for this in higher ed that we call student swirl. Students go in and out of our institutions. They'll do some courses at a community college. They'll come back to a UT. They'll leave and go back to the community college, and then they'll come back again. So it's a very different student body. A lot of them are English language learners, and as you heard, the growth in Texas and for our students in the UT system is largely Hispanic. So we have some different kinds of students, and I like the reference that President Amy made to these are non-traditional students. The fact is the non-traditional is the new traditional. These are the students we are serving in large numbers. I think in the UT system we've done a really good job at sort of cracking what you'd call the access nut. Students in Texas from K-12 are enrolling really well in high numbers at our 8 academic universities. What we haven't done so well is figure out how to get them across the finish line. So they come in, and we're not having the success we'd like and that our students need in getting them through from one year to the next and out in 4 years or even 6 years. So that's something we've been working on with great intentionality in the UT system. Through the vision and leadership of the chancellor, actually, it's been quite remarkable. Well, we have a framework that we've put in place that focuses, as our moderator mentioned, on 3 pillars of student success. These pillars are finances, advising, and belonging. And we've made a set of commitments to our students that we don't want our students to drop out because they don't have the money. We don't want our students to drop out because they're not getting effective, strong advising. And we don't want our students to drop out because they feel like they do not belong at our institution. So we're working really hard, and you're going to hear some great examples from my colleagues here about how we are working around those commitments. This is a framework, actually, that's very research-driven, evidence-based. We think it's very student-centered, holistic. And we really look at all the assets that our students are bringing to us when they come to our universities. We look at their English language learning as an incredible, or second language being English, as an incredible asset because it means that they are bilingual. And that's going to position them for all sorts of success that people a generation ago, or someone like me who's not bilingual in Spanish, that's a really phenomenal asset. They bring other kinds of things. They've been working in jobs for years, so they know how to work hard, they have grit, they have resilience, and we want to honor those assets that our students have when they come into us, even if it means we also have to give them some extra support in academic and extra academic ways. And this isn't about student coddling. We want to really give our students a sense of agency so they can author their own educational success and be responsible for their own progress, and we want to position them in all the ways we can and support them so that they can do that. And this means removing some barriers that the phrase sort of thinking about how we make our institutions student ready. This means rethinking maybe how we schedule courses. If our students, half of them are working 20 hours a week, we may not be able to offer courses at the same times we've always done so because we've always done it that way. We have to question some things. We're really rethinking the financial well-being of our students because across the country there's a lot of emerging research, and it plays out at each one of our campuses about the extent to which we have students who are hungry. We have students who are homeless. We have students who don't have warm clothing. We have students who can't buy textbooks. How are you going to succeed in a course if you don't have the textbook? So we are working really hard to figure out how to remove some of those barriers, provide even emergency grants of a couple $100, let a student register if they have a parking fine of $85. Right now, we have campuses that say you can't register if you have a parking ticket of $85. Why would we do that? I mean, so we're really rethinking some of our standard practices to say we need to change some of our business as usual and really focus on the students. The last thing I'll say before turning it over is I feel like we have this tremendous opportunity in Texas. The future is now in Texas. Our population is what the rest of the country is going to look like in a few generations. But we have that population now. It's a beautiful opportunity. And I really feel like we have this moral, economic, civic, and educational imperative to figure out how to do this because the rest of the country is watching.
Right. Dr. Troutman, hold on. Dr. Troutman, universities today have much more data available to help predict who is likely to need more support, and therefore what types of support efforts might be needed. What have you learned about which students face the greatest hardships, and how is that research being applied at UT institutions?
Absolutely. So I have a handheld and a lapel, so they must know I talk a lot. So I get really excited about data, so I apologize for that. So what we know is that we're inundated with data. Everyone knows that on a daily basis. We're getting waves of information. But what's nice about that is we can take advantage of that. And I think higher education is getting better and better at using data and applying it in a meaningful way to support students and support student success. And so one way we do that is predictive analytics. You know, that's the buzzword right now to talk about predictive analytics, but it's just statistics. It's been around for years. And so what's nice about that is we can analyze the data and really understand and identify factors that are associated with student success. So for example, like Rebecca mentioned, finance reasons, belonging, whether it be academic or social belonging, or even academic preparedness that might impact their success. So specifically in factors, you might be interested in first generation status, ethnic minority status, SAT scores. But I think what happens is those factors are not in isolation. So you might have a person that received a low SAT score that's first generation, that's working off campus, that's in high financial need. And so what we can do is we can really use those factors to really understand how to create a safety net, because that's the goal. And we can predict, using those analytics, we can actually figure out what those factors might be for a certain student before they even step on campus. So it's really exciting to sort of create an agile safety net, i.e. the services we provide, to be meaningful and thoughtful for the students so everyone can succeed.
Thank you. At UT Rio Grande Valley, students are provided with an academic blueprint with recommendations for academics, advising, and engagement. Dr. Croyle, tell us about how those are working on your campus and how you're developing them into a commitment between the university and the students.
First, I have to say I'm super excited to talk about this.
Good. Do you need another microphone?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
So thank you so much for inviting me, Chancellor. I know many of you are already friends of UT Rio Grande Valley. If you haven't been down, come and visit us. But if you need a quick intro, we have about 28,000 students. Our main campuses are in Edinburgh and Brownsville. And our enrollment is 89% Latino. About 60% of our students are first-generation students, and about 60% of our students are eligible for Pell Grants, meaning that they come from low-income families. These students are amazing students. When we say, this is what you can do to succeed, they listen. If we say the bar is this high, they jump that high. Now, if we say the bar is this high, they'll jump that high. So we say it's this high. And we also know that our students sometimes are coming from, the very structured high school environment. Sometimes they're coming from the world of work, where the rules are pretty clear, really, on how to succeed and how to get the promotion and how to get fired. And then they come into the university, and the rules are not clear. It's this universe of choices that they could go in any direction. Well, we know what the research says about what they need to do to be successful. So we try and get that information into their hands as quickly as possible with structures around them to help them make those choices as quickly as possible. So every student, when they start with us, they get an academic blueprint. It says, take these courses, Take them in this order if you really want to have a good structured learning experience. But not just that. Engage in meaningful advising experiences where you plan your pathway. Engage in meaningful career preparation experiences. This is the time to start thinking about internships. This is a student organization affiliated with your major that will help you make connections and start to think about what it's going to be like to be a professional in your field. So that's all on the blueprint. The next step that we're developing is the Promise Program. So the Promise Program takes that blueprint and it puts meat in it. Says if you do these things, the university has got your back. You will graduate in 4 years. You will be well prepared. And if you don't, we will pay your tuition that's left over. If you can't graduate in 4 years, we will pay your remaining tuition. So, yeah. Because we want the students we want to give them that little nudge that says, really, if you take these steps, this is the way that you can do it. We're here for you. Now, we're piloting that right now with our College of Business. It's been very popular rolling out to our freshman students that are interested in business, and I think the sky's the limit with that program because our students are ready for it.
Fantastic, thank you. Dr. Gonzalez, UT San Antonio has been implementing a number of programs as part of Pivot, an initiative aimed at first-generation students. What is Pivot, and how does it work?
Great, thank you. I want to just acknowledge my colleagues on the stage. There's a lot of talk about the return on investment of a college education. I think it's evident here about what the return on education is, and that is a lot of passion for the work that we do with our students, and I think that is what we're looking to unleash with our programs like Pivot, not just in retaining and graduating them, but help them on their journey to discover what their passions are, how they can have a successful career, but also how they can be part of a larger community, both locally and globally. Pivot stands for Prepare, Inspire, Validate, Orient, and Transition. So it's an acronym. We love acronyms in higher education. And it was the funding of a federal grant, of a $3.25 million grant in 2015 that helped us launch 4 programs, but I'm going to just highlight 2 of them here. Two of them focused on the transfer student population on our campus specifically and the first-generation college students on our campus. First-generation college students and transfer students often overlap in an identity. About 20% of our students hold both a first-generation and a transfer student identity on our campus, with about 50% of our students being first-gen. And you heard the intro, the beautiful, well-done video, and I think one thing is clear, and I like to say it whenever I get a chance, is the future is first-generation in this country. It really is, and so we have to get it right. About 10 years ago, about 17% of our students nationally were first generation. Now, about 33% are first gen. And if we break that down by race and ethnicity, about 66% of our Latino students are first gen, and 44% of our African American students are first gen. So with the changing demographics, we really have to think about that in a comprehensive way. And Texas is well placed to be the leader in setting the expectations and standards for graduating students nationally. So with Pivot and first-generation college students, what we've been able to do is create familias on campus, or families, that translate for my bilingual audience. And what we do is we find our first-generation college faculty on our campus. We want to be a destination institution for first-generation faculty, because it's those role models in the faculty, and I am also first-generation. My mother had a 3rd grade education. My father had an 8th grade education, who know what it means to make it this far, but also pay back to community. And that's what we find with our first generation faculty, is they really want to pay back. So we've created communities where first gen faculty give back to our first gen students by creating essentially micro-families on our campus. And so we're in our 2nd year of doing that.
Thank you. Dr. Alvarado, UT is part of a national effort called the University Innovation Alliance. That's a consortium of 11 major public research universities, including Ohio State University, Michigan State University, and Purdue University, all learning from one another to develop strategies for improving college completion rates. UT Austin has made great gains in removing barriers to student progress through individual targeted involvement, such as the graduation help desk. Is there something that's been shared with the, is this something that's been shared with the Alliance, the desk, and how has it been received?
Thank you. At UT Austin, we are extraordinarily proud of our improvements in our four-year graduation rates. In the last 5 years, we've improved our four-year grad rate by 26%.
Wow.
Thank you. Our highest growth has been with low-income and first-generation students. And so we're collaborating with universities across the country through the University Innovation Alliance and the American Talent Initiative. These collaborations allow us to study key aspects of student success by participating in an alliance-wide Department of Education grant to study the role of academic advising in student success, and a project to use completion grants to help support graduation, just to name a few. We're really excited, though, about our graduation help desk, and that it's now being replicated across the UT system. Graduation Help Desk was started at UT Austin 4 years ago to remove administrative or policy barriers to timely graduation. We like to say that's the burnt orange tape, so to speak. This is a virtual and in-person desk that provides a central location for students as well as faculty and staff to turn to when they have a challenge related to student success. This could be something like course availability, canceled classes, issues with prerequisites, to name a few. The UT Austin Graduation Help Desk has served more than 1,500 students to resolve a barrier for their graduation, and that has directly improved our four-year graduation rates. And we're thrilled to have shared that with our colleagues across the UT system to expand this concept and implement desks across UT. We've trained teams from across the system, and now, across UT system, we're removing student barriers. And I really believe that all of these collaborations remind us that when campuses work together, students succeed.
Thank you. Is there a common barrier? Is there a common barrier, something that's more prevalent than others?
Every one of our campuses identifies a different barrier.
Yeah.
But what's valuable about the Graduation Help Desk is that it's a central place for the entire campus to turn, so that if one student has a problem, perhaps another student has a problem, and the institution quickly becomes aware of what those challenges are and can deploy resources quickly to try and solve it. Sometimes students don't know where to turn, and a Grad Help Desk is the friendly face to solve those problems.
That's great. Dr. Yeager, you are an architect of the Mindset Scholars Network and have researched why the feeling of belonging and engagement is so important to students and a key to their ongoing success. What have you learned and what initiatives are being implemented at UT Austin as a result?
Yeah, great, thanks. One of the starting premise for the mindset research is the idea that when we look at the graduation rates that aren't as good as we want them to be, it's not because students were an admissions mistake. And it's also not that college needs to be easy. And it's not the case that students can't succeed. So what might be getting in the way? That's kind of our psychological question. And what we've learned is really interesting. It's the idea that anytime a person starts in a new place, whether it's a new job or a new relationship, certainly a new college, there are questions that arise, questions of belonging. Is this for me? Do I belong here? Will I be supported? And those questions kind of loom large, especially when you're on the precipice of taking a risk, right? Whether it's a financial risk or a relational risk, right, or an academic risk, you ask yourself, is this a safe place for me to be doing something new? And if higher education is doing what it's supposed to be doing, we should be pushing people far beyond what they are capable of in high school. You shouldn't be relearning things you learned in high school. You should be going to the frontiers of your field, the frontiers of your discipline. As a developmental psychologist, we think a lot about infants, right? So like when babies are crawling and right before they do something scary, they kind of look up and they see, it's like, is mom there? Am I going to be supported? Right? If they don't feel supported, they don't take a risk. So how do we structure our higher education institutions so that students are pushed, so that they embrace new challenges, but they feel supported? And that's what we focus on. So one thing we've learned is that when you enter college and you look around and you say, are people here like me? Are people here gonna think I'm smart enough to be here? Are people here gonna think that I belong? That's a question that's in your mind right before you decide to raise your hand when you're confused, before you decide to go to the writing center, to be publicly confused in front of someone, right? When you're ashamed maybe to kind of call your parents to let them know you're failing a class you took in high school, right? When all your friends are posting on Facebook the straight A's they're getting and you're getting C's, right? And you don't realize that they're only posting the easy assignments, not the hard assignments, right? So all those things are in your head as you're trying to become an engineer, right? And so what we focus on is, what are the things we can do? What are the messages we can give you just in time to answer those questions of belonging? Now, there are some things we could do. More diversity on campus, of course, allows for students to feel a greater sense of belonging, and certainly in leadership, right? I mean, even like, right, in the leadership in the UT system, right? The more that we increase diversity, then the more students can feel like they can belong. But right now, there's a lot we can do. So one thing we try to do is to focus on questions specifically about ability, right? Am I struggling because I'm not smart at this? Or is this a natural part of the process? And when professors help students see that struggles are normal, and in fact they're expected, and of course you expect to struggle because that's because you're doing the hardest things, then we find rather dramatic improvements, especially for students who have reasons to question belonging. At UT, for instance, we did a little experiment a few years ago, the Vice Provost and I, where we helped students during orientation to learn that when you struggle in your first year classes, UT doesn't think you're dumb. It's actually a sign that your brain's getting smarter. Because how else will your brain get smarter if not by learning new things? And what we found was, at least in that one randomized trial, a 40% reduction in inequalities for students being full-time students in a trial around 7,500 students by the end of the first year of college. Footnote, we came back senior year and we took blood samples. I'm a psychologist, so we do studies like this. And we find that students had less activation in their blood that's consistent with chronic stress, even 4 years later. If you learned before college that when you struggle, it doesn't mean you're dumb. So how can we do that more systematically? Well, Carolyn Conrad is here. She's been such a leader at UT and has worked closely with us to spread these productive messages. But one thing I'm doing now is I'm teaching freshmen. And my goal is to create a super hard class that has standards here, but that has supports that are here. And the idea is when students are stressed, it's when the thing you're being asked to do is harder than what you're supported to do. Right. And we often think, oh, well, then we should make it easier. But how do we hold students to a high standard, but then create an emotional feeling of support so that they know that they can belong as they embrace that? And I think if we do that, everyone's going to copy us. I mean, Texas is already the best, but it'll just be even more obvious. And there will just be an orange wave across the South and beyond if we figure it out. And that's our challenge.
Spoken like a true Texan. Dr. Bikini, on to you. UT Dallas has focused on improving student success collaboration across academic and student affairs in a manner that maximizes efforts directed at all incoming students, including first-time freshmen, transfer, international, and graduate students. This allows you to assess the relationship between student engagement initiatives and success metrics more accurately. Some of these initiatives include enrichment programs and service learning. So tell us about these efforts to engage students, and has there been an impact on retention as a result of them?
Sure. I'm really pleased at how this panel has gone because, as I expected, with such a large group of amazing individuals, I can kind of mic drop. I didn't even need my talking points. I can just say I concur. Texas is the best. No blood samples here, but we are doing student success, I promise. See, dang, I wish I could get away with that. Unfortunately, I can't. But just to contextualize some of the work that all of my colleagues are doing and that we're doing on our campus, In a university environment, it's really easy to get siloed. You know, everyone is getting on the student success bandwagon, but at a large, complex organization like a university, it's easy to, well, it's difficult to prevent duplication of effort and ensure coordination with faculty and staff from student affairs and academic affairs sides of the house. So something that we've done at UT Dallas is we've created what we call a new student engagement board. And that engages leaders from our faculty at all levels and staff from all levels across the university's hierarchy, which is large and complex. But that allows us to improve communication. And we have since come up with a consistent definition of what does student success actually look like? And this has allowed us to more holistically assess impact of various student success initiatives. At UT Dallas, I like to say that we approach student success from a Maslow's hierarchy of needs approach, in that we try to make sure that we are meeting the basic needs of all of our incoming students, regardless of type of admission or where they're coming from or background. For example, we do that through service learning initiatives like our on-campus food pantry that is completely run by students and donation-driven. That way students don't go hungry, and we literally assign a student success metric to that, and we have data that shows from pre and post analysis that GPAs actually increase after they use our on-campus food pantry. We also, in terms of impact on retention rates, have been able to maximize our human capital on our campus through our very successful student body by utilizing peer mentorship programs. That's kind of addressing that belonging area of the needs hierarchy. We're very lucky that we have a large, very successful freshman mentor program that is a one-on-one, completely voluntary mentor program where the students are now, this program now engages more than 1,100 students each academic year. And we have recognized such gains in retention that participants are now retaining at a 10% higher rate than non-participants. And the mentors are getting something out of it too, which is important to the holistic approach, making sure that everything we do is mutually beneficial, not just to the students who we're serving, but the students who are also helping serve their peers. We do that through leadership development and 0 credit hour courses with them, but we also survey these mentors to see what else they get out of serving their peers. Because we know what we get out of serving them, right? And they've indicated that they actually have higher levels of feelings of empathy for their peers, which is great because we have a lot of pre-med students out there. So I know my future doctors, health institutions, you're welcome, are a lot more empathetic now. Just by serving their peers and contributing to our kind of self-sustaining model of student success on our campus. And now, again, thank you to our Student Success Grant from UT System, of which you're all stakeholders, and we're very appreciative. We're expanding those services to serve transfer students who are a little bit more non-traditional in nature and our non-scholarship underrepresented minority populations in unique ways too, with kind of that family mentorship model. And I think that'll really help us long-term recognize a lot of gains as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We just have a little time. Thank you. Please. We just have a little time left, and this last question is a jump ball for all of you. You've talked about some very important initiatives, some of them seminal, groundbreaking. So where do we go from here? What do we need to do to get to a point that you think is the point of ultimate success?
I'll
Yes,
say
Dr. Carroll.
one thing we need to do, and this is the biggest challenge I think we have. You can see all the stellar programs on our campuses that are really meeting students where they are and taking them much further. But there's this problem we have, and some of it is relevant to a resource environment. It's really hard to scale things. It's really hard to reach every one of our students. We've got the research, we've got the learning science, we have the programmatic knowledge. How do we scale some of what we're doing so that we really reach each and every one? I think that's one of our big challenges.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I just want to add that I do talks across the country on student success, and everywhere I go, I see solutionitis, the inflammation of solutions, right? And it's just very hard to coordinate. At the same time, I also teach freshmen, and the magic sauce is relationships, right? My freshmen will do the hardest things, just like, you know, in 30 minutes do a really tough, you know, oral presentation about something they have no expertise in, because they know I see them as a leader in the field. And that society depends on them deepening their expertise, and this is your time. So one big challenge is, how do we both innovate at scale and not lose the relationships that our students need in order to really embrace that. And if we do that, we can help our students not just have credentials when they get out, but be learners, right? The future of the economy is not just knowing things and applying it, right? It's pulling together diverse expertise in a new way for the first time to solve problems that haven't been solved before. And to do that, often you need mentors. And so I think we need to keep investing in relationships between experts and mentors on campus and the young people that we have.
Yes, Doctor.
I just want to add that I think one of the opportunities we have in Texas in particular, because we are the model, we are the best, is that we do need to really strengthen the alignment of our K through 12 education system with our post-K education, 12 education. And I think in some ways we kind of need to get over ourselves as higher education folks and really look into partnering boots on the ground with our K through 12 educators. We need to compensate our educators well, and we need to make sure that they are prepared with skill sets that they need to inspire and validate their young learners in their K through 12 environments, and that we're partnering to make sure whether we're onboarding them at the community college level or transferring them over from community college and making sure they graduate when they're there, because that's another retention area that we're not talking about here as four-year institution, and that is our community college partners, where the great majority of our under-resourced and underrepresented students start out. And they also need to, we need to help them, not they, you know, we can't keep pointing fingers. We also need to work together with our community colleges to make sure that we're building processes that allow our students to transfer seamlessly between the 2-year and 4-year experience.
Great. I want to thank you all, not only for your participation in this panel, but for your manifest dedication to what you're doing and what it's doing for our state. I want to thank you all for accepting that I'm not Tom Brokaw. And I want to welcome back to the stage Chairman Rathmel, who will conclude the session. Thanks so much. Thank you all very much.